things we'll be covering today. I'll cover them fairly briefly because I have a feeling that you may know much of the information already, and I'll get as quickly as I possibly can down to the questions, and hopefully we can answer them all for you today. If we can't, then we've got all your email addresses and contact details, so we'll get back to you. Thank you, Natalie. Okay, I'm sitting a little bit closer to the microphone now, so hopefully you can hear me a little bit better. I'm going to do a couple of polls as we go along, and here's one regarding your current appreciation of the MA education of studying online. If I can get the poll working, you can select one of those three choices. Your current appreciation is currently either excellent or okay or not so good. Okay, half of you have responded so far. Okay, that's lovely. It would seem that most of you are about halfway house and indeed need some extra information. So I'll carry on running through the slides as I planned, and I'll just check in a few slides time to see whether I'm going too quickly or too slowly. Now, I'd like to know for my benefit, please, whether you're intending starting this semester or perhaps later this year. So if you could just put your hand up if you're going to start this semester. 1, 2, 5 out of 10, 5 out of 9, sorry. And I'm not sure that the others can hear me, so okay. So I'll take it that the majority of you are going to start with us this semester, and that's very encouraging. Thank you. I know you've all got your own reasons for undertaking the MA, but on the slide now you'll see a few actual, genuine, honest comments from our current and previous students. Some are doing it for professional reasons, some are doing it for personal too. And a lot are doing it because of their preferences, their personal preferences in the geographical location. They've got any time, any day, anywhere access. The technologies we use are quite simple. Well, as you can see today, they don't always work 100%. But you'll soon get used to them. And although you're not in a campus classroom-based environment, you can still interact with your tutor and other students, although it will be asynchronous. Whilst that may be strange at first for those of you that haven't studied online before, you'll soon begin to recognize the many benefits of asynchronous interaction. So, for example, you'll have more time to consider your responses, the activities you take, and hopefully you won't be intimidated by the louder voices that you normally find in. Now, I'm sure you're aware of the master's titles that we're running. There are less online offerings than there are campus-based, but we're gradually increasing that. You can take a Master of Arts in Education as a generic program, or you can elect to take the ESOL or the Leadership and Management pathway. If you want to take one of the two pathways, then you don't have to make that decision at the outset, because you can do that by selecting your required option. I'll show you how you'll be able to do that shortly. And of course, if you're going to take one of the short programs and then perhaps go on to do full math later, then you will have to specify at the outset whether you want to do leadership and management, whether you want to take the Now here's the program and module options at a glance. I've color coded it so you can see the individual pathways. And this information is available online to you. I can always send you a copy if you need it. And having this information up front will allow you to plan what you want to do in the future and perhaps during semester breaks, so planned reading and so on and so forth. So if, for example, you want to follow the leadership and management pathway, you're starting your study now, i.e. spring 2017, and your schedule would be in spring this year, i.e. January the 30th, the Master of the Academic Practice core module. It's always advisable to do this first because it's really a foundation of the whole degree itself. It doesn't have to be taken first, and it's not completely disadvantageous to you, but it does give you the study skills, the research skills, and so on and so forth. Then in the summer, you'd move on to developing leadership capacity, and the autumn, back to a core module, the evidence. Hopefully, the rest of it is pretty intuitive. Now, it may be that as you progress through your studies, you find that an option is available to you, but it isn't done in a. And if that's the case, you'd either have to choose an option or you have to wait perhaps for
Oh, Dave, I'll just cut in there. I think your audio keeps going and a few are struggling to hear you. If you could speak into your microphone a bit louder and clearer, I think the sound quality has gone a bit poor.
Thanks for that, Natalie.
Is that better? If everyone can hear him a little bit better, put your hand up. And if it does, if the audio does cut out again, I think the last slide people didn't hear too clearly.
Okay, would you like me to run through the last slide again?
Yes, perfect. We can hear you perfectly now.
Okay,
Okay,
I'm
excellent.
crouching over
Thank
my
you, David.
computer at the moment.
Okay, can everybody hear David perfect? Yes, yes, they can all hear you better now. So
Oh, that's
perfect.
great.
Let's carry on.
Okay, I'll start shouting then. Okay, what I'll do is I'll come back to this slide later if anyone has any particular questions on it, just in case you have actually heard me and you don't want to be bored by me going through the whole thing again. Now, here's the program team. There's myself in the top left corner as a tutor, and I would be, or I or your current module tutor would be your first point of contact. And you'll probably find that your tutor will be able to help you out of 90–95% of all your queries and all your issues. You'll also have an online learning advisor who for education is Michelle Humphreys. And if you have any specific issues regarding your personal circumstances or whatever, and you're finding it difficult at any time to keep the pace of the learning or whatever, then she's the person to contact. We have an academic lead, Lucy Hutchinson, who is the person we defer to if we cannot sort out your problems ourselves. But as I say, 95% of the time we'll be able to do that. There's an excellent library service, and they'll provide good advice and excellent access to your reading materials. I'll come on to the reading materials later. And perhaps the most important support that you'll get is from your fellow students, particularly in an online and asynchronous situation. Then you'll often be able to help yourselves out in a way that your tutors can't. And that's actually happening today. I've seen a few messages appear on the screen where you're trying to guide each other. This information will be available to you in your Blackboard module, or course resources as we call it in the university, but you might want to take a screenshot of it now if you wish. Let me just check at this stage with a quick poll whether we are moving too slowly, quickly, or just right. There we go. Number 1, too fast. Number 2, just right. And number 3, too slow. Okay, looks like we've got it just about right so far, so I'll carry on. Now, if you haven't studied online before, then all the communication that takes place will be, or mainly via what we call course resources. And to those of you that have used the system before, it's a piece of software known as Blackboard, virtual learning environment, one of several available out there, schools, colleges. You will need to look out for occasional announcements, and we use announcements for important information from time to time. You'll establish a dialogue within the discussion forums that we set up, and the forums will be set up for specific activities as you progress through the units, and also for frequently asked questions like assessment and the course content. Now, you're not obliged to contribute, but statistically, students do perform better in assessments. They participate in the market. You can pose queries to your tutor using the relevant thread in the frequently asked questions forum. And we prefer you to do this rather than emailing your tutor, because the answer that's given will then be available to everyone, and it saves an awful amount of time and effort on everyone's part. But do use email with your tutor and with your online learning advisor if you have anything that's of a confidential nature. Now, the all-important assessment. One of the first things I'm sure you'll look at when you enroll on your module. You'll have both summative and formative assessments going on in the course. The summative assessment at the end of the module will usually be one written assessment submitted by the Tuesday in the week after the module ends, so that will be week 11. And if it's the independent studies module, then that would be a 15,000 word dissertation. Most of the assessment formats are reports, essays, and reflective accounts. So they're all written. Well, there are some others. For example, you may be asked to do a presentation. So I think that's in the ESOL pathway. One of the modules there asks you for a presentation. But I think you're given a number of options regarding the way you approach it. It doesn't have to be a sort of a standard PowerPoint presentation. Online Resi presentation if you're familiar with that software. Or I think you can even do a written version, very similar to it. And in the managing and evaluating learning module, there's also an academic poster presentation. Don't present it yourself, just create the poster. Typical submissions will be 3,000 or 3,500. You'll also be given an opportunity for formative feedback. You'll also be given an opportunity for formative feedback. Yeah, sorry about the sound quality. I don't know whether it's my computer. I haven't had problems on this particular machine before. I do use Skype quite a lot, or whether it's the network. But I'll try to keep the volume as high as I possibly can. Now, I was talking about formative assessment. You'll get the opportunity for formative feedback partway through the module. And you should receive an announcement to this effect, telling you something like you'll be able to submit a couple of pages, A4 pages of a Microsoft Word document as a sort of a draft attempt at the final assignment. And this will give your tutor an opportunity to provide you with some constructive feedback, both on the nature of your scholarly writing and the content of the assignment as well. Your continuous participation in discussions and your blog entries will also provide a means of formative assessment. So that's another good reason for participating, if you can, in the activity. If you have any questions on any of the specific module assessments, then I can answer those when we take your questions in a little while. Okay. We're still having problems with the sound, but we'll plow on and persevere. Let's move on to reading. You'll find a reading list in Blackboard when you start the modules, and most of the books will be available as ebooks. So you'll be able to read them online. There are some restrictions on ebooks. Some of them can be downloaded. In fact, most of them can be downloaded. But the available reading time might be restricted. Sometimes you've got 24 hours reading available to you. You'll then be able to download the ebook on another occasion or other occasions, but those occasions may be limited as well. But there is always the option to read the material online. When you read online, there are no restrictions. So that may be the recommended method, although not necessarily your preferred method. There was a question prior to this session, will you be required to purchase any books yourselves? And the answer is officially no, you're not. But if you're like me, you might want one or two of the key texts. You may wish to purchase them in advance. Depends how much they're going to charge you for them on Amazon. Luckily, I managed to purchase some second-hand books for a few pounds each, so I tend to have at least 2 or 3 of the key texts available to you at all times. You might choose. Your assignments will require critical discussion, and books and journals from credible sources are obviously key to this. So reading is an all-important component. You'll probably have about 20 hours per unit for each of the 10 units of your module. As a ballpark figure, I would say you probably spend 6 of those hours either online or carrying out the activities associated with the module, and the remainder of that 20 hours you should dedicate to your reading around. I would strongly advise you to keep the reading up as you go along, and also to perhaps start compiling your assignment at a fairly early stage, and at least putting into that references to the reading that you're using, and perhaps jot down some key citations. So what would a typical day or week in your life of online study comprise? Well, you'd log into course resources or Blackboard to check the new announcements. You might then progress any ongoing discussions in the forums before picking up again on your learning and following your own study plan. Very important to create your own study plan, to divide up your time. What are you going to do? How much time are you going to spend on it? When are you going to do it? And where are you going to do it? The learning materials will be very specific, and they'll guide you explicitly through the learning process and through the included activities. And the materials that you use will often be supported with videos and recommended. The activities that you carry out will vary from simple comments to discussions, the occasional debate, and you'll be occasionally invited to write an entry in your learning journal, which in Blackboard will be a blog. As I said before, the activities are not compulsory. Indeed, some of them are marked as optional. But you are advised to carry them out as far as possible because they do have a specific purpose guiding you through the learning, supporting the learning, and particularly the end of module activities. Each unit will have its own end of unit activity. So even if you don't do all of the other activities, please try to carry out the end of. And the materials will be published in advance. For most modules, all 10 units will be published in advance, so you can get a feel for the whole module as soon as you like, and you can pace the module just as you wish, staying ahead of the game. You might take part in an occasional seminar using Blackboard Collaborate. I tend to stick mainly to the asynchronous side of things because it does work well for us, and as you can see today, Collaborate isn't always 100%. Now, another of the questions that you've asked is how would you best prepare yourself for your first semester? Now, 1 week before you start the module, you'll be given access to Blackboard and to the module material. So I suggest that with 1 week to go, familiarize yourself with materials on Blackboard. Pay particular attention to your units of studies, which are listed under learning activities, and the requirements of the assessment. Don't teach to the assessment, but it is always good to know what the requirement is, how you should continually prepare and have a look at the reading list, access the library, and make sure that you do have access to those books. As I say, most of them will be in e-format, and where they're not, then you might choose to look for another book. There are plenty of titles available in the library, or indeed, as I suggested before, perhaps consider purchasing hard copies. Read through the module information area, which gives you all the information you need on the module. Do flag up any problems that you have as soon as possible using the relevant thread in the frequently asked questions forum of the discussion. Once you've done all this, you'll be in a position to start drawing up a study plan. Your study plan should help you decide what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, how you divide up your week, how you're going to find that nice private space to study away from the hubby and the kids. And a study plan is something which is easily overlooked, but I can't overemphasize the need to do it and also the need to revise it on a continuous basis. So once every couple of weeks, check your study plan, make sure it's working for you, and update it as required. Make sure that your study plan takes into account any predicted periods of increased activity in your personal or professional life. Or you may, for example, have an upcoming Ofsted inspection at school, or you might have a family wedding going on. And if this is the case, then incorporate these into your semester by reallocating your available time. I know it's common sense, but it's easy. In the 1 week prior to starting the module, I would advise accessing 1 or 2 books from the reading list and creating a reading plan within your study plan for your first 2 weeks. So, for example, for Master the Academic Practice, if you're starting the degree this semester, then you could choose the Study Skills for your Masters in Teaching and Learning, book by Karen Castle, and that is available as an ebook. And if you happen to be doing the Leadership and Management path and you're taking a Leadership and Management module this semester, then my recommend would be Educational Leadership and Management, Developing Insight and Skills, book by Coleman and Glover, or Leadership and Management Development in Education by Tony Bush, both of which again are available as ebooks. finally, always remember the 5 P's of performance. Proper planning prevents poor performance, or acronyms to that effect. I'm sure that you've heard of it. Okay, I think that's about all from me. Um, Time for you to ask your own questions now. But before you do, there were 4 that were posed before the session. The first one was, is there a possibility of knowing what to study in forthcoming trimesters? I think we've answered that question, although we were having a bit of trouble with the sound at the time. But if you want me to revisit that particular slide, or indeed send you a copy of it, so that you know what your study pattern is likely to be the coming year and beyond, then I'm happy to do that. Someone asked whether the assignments were just essays with no written examination, and how is a student assessed? And I think we've possibly answered that one as well. All your assignments are written assignments, mainly reports and essays. There are no examinations. The only examinations I'm aware of, I run a mathematics course, maths in preparation for higher education study. There is an exam in that, but that's not. Your reading list consists of books which have to be bought. This is useful to know in planning my budget. No, you don't have to buy anything, but you can if you wish. Buy wise. I would suggest that if you're looking for a couple of key texts, and once you find out who your module tutor is for your first module or your upcoming modules, and drop them an email and ask them what they suggest. And finally, will the context of my current teaching environment, the Caribbean, be taken into account in the program, or will the course use general principles which can be applied everywhere in the world? And the question is almost rhetorical, and that will do, yes, deal with general principles of education. Can, or should I say, could be applied everywhere in the world. Though we are mindful that some of you in your current institutions will have restrictions imposed on you purely by the system. So for example, some of my past students in the Middle East have been unable to introduce some of the recommendations that they've made as a result of this. Well, they have at least been able to compare and contrast the theoretical models and theories with the practice that's currently in existence in their institutes and make some recommendations. And eventually, most students do have some influence on their organisation. Now, Ruth has asked, module options, can I take fewer modules, spring, not in the spring semester and more in the summer trimester when I have time off work? Well, that's a very good question. 2 things I would say to that. First of all, and I'm reiterating myself, you can only take a module if it's available for delivery in that semester, as we depicted on slide 8. And secondly, do be very cautious about undertaking too much. 20 hours of study on top of your personal and working life is an awful lot to undertake. Now, I don't want to put you off, because we do have students that do exactly that and they do cope with it. But it's something that you do need to consider very, very strongly. Draw up your study plan and decide whether you can cope, and build into that plan a little bit of leeway and some contingency. Yes, Ruth, you can study more than one module if it's available. No problem. Any other questions? Can I please repeat the book titles that were mentioned earlier? I can indeed. At the end of the presentation, I'll give you an information slide with some contact details. There were some general contact details for the university. and I'll give you my email again as well. If you want to drop me any questions by email following the session, particularly bearing in mind that you've had trouble hearing me at times, then I'll be only too willing to answer them. If you want any of this information passed to you, then I'll do so. Now, in terms of the books that I mentioned, I mentioned one from Masterly Academic Practice, which is likely to be the module that most of you will undertake. And the book was called Study Skills for Your Masters in Teaching and Learning. Hopefully you can hear that. If you can't, then say so, and I'll type it into the comments box as well. Study Skills for Your Masters in Teaching and Learning, and it's by Karen Castle. Did you get that, Elizabeth? Please stick up your hand if you did. Lovely, thank you very much. Now the time is almost 10:40. The session doesn't end until 11 o'clock, and I'll be here for a little while after. So do take your time to consider any questions you may have. Just let us have them when you're ready. Slide 8, yes. Can I show slide 8 again? Yes, indeed I can. Straight to it. There we go, slide 8. Now slide 8 shows what would be your study pattern. And from this, you should be able to plan 3 years of study. If you take the normal route, then it will take you 3 years to complete. You can take more than one module in a semester if you wish, and as we've already mentioned, so do be cautious about that. You can complete this in about 2 years or just over 2. But if you choose to choose 3 years or more, then I would think that's perhaps the better option. And you need 180 credits. Yes, this is the whole course, Ruth. This is the whole course, and you will need 180 credits. You must take the 3 core modules, and they include the independent study, which means a dissertation. So those 3 modules together represent 100 of the 180 points. So the remaining 80 will require you to choose 4 optional modules. If you're taking the generic pathway through the degree, then you can choose any 4 you wish. And of course, if you're choosing a particular pathway, the ESOL or the leadership and management, and of course you must include the 2 leadership or the 2 ESOL modules within your choice. You ask if the independent studies is only taken in the 3rd year. Except in exceptional circumstances, you wouldn't be allowed to start your independent study until that final year. Now, it may be that you still have an outstanding module at that stage, and there's no reason why you can't take that module alongside the independent study. You wouldn't ordinarily start that study until year 3 unless you've elected to take the 2-year route. So it's food for thought at this stage. One thing I would suggest, Ruth, is that whenever you do study that module, start thinking about it right now. Start thinking about the things that you would like to research. What is it that matters to you, your institute? What sort of things would you like to investigate? What's happening in your institute that could possibly be improved? And the sooner you start thinking about it, then the easier it will be come the time, even though it's 2 years down the line. Don't just shelve it. There's nothing to stop you doing both ESOL and leadership and management, of course, because you have the available capacity for option choice. But you will have to elect at some stage whether you're going to be credited with a leadership and management or an ESOL. You can't have a certificate that states both. Stephanie asks, Stephanie has signed up for the PG certificate in leadership and management. Does that mean that she has to take the 2 leadership and management modules and the dissertation? No, it doesn't. If you're doing a PGCE, then you will take 1 core module and the 2 pathway modules. So in your case, Stephanie, developing leadership capacity and quality leadership and management. And the core module will be the masterly academic practice. I think, I'm not 100% sure whether you can do another core one in its place, such as evidence-based practice. But the norm is masterly academic practice, which runs this coming semester anyway. That will be a good one to take. And then the 2 leadership and management. Does that help clarify? Oh, good. Okay, now have I missed any questions?
I'll also make a note of, for anybody who joined late or couldn't hear anything through the session, we have recorded the session with the questions and answers, as well as all the presentation slides. So we'll be sending that out on Monday, just in case you have missed anything. But I'll pass you back to David for if you have any more questions.
Thanks, Natalie. Your sound's loud and clear, by the way, so are you wearing a headset?
I am indeed.
Perhaps I need to do that next time.
If you have any more questions to ask David, we're here till 11, so please do ask any questions. We're here to answer anything, whether it's small, large, or you're just confused about any element of the course, or even if it's just about online learning in general, we're here to happy to ask as well, answer. So please do ask.
Okay, while you're thinking of any more questions, I'll just jump ahead to the end of the presentation. Well, we've got some key dates for you, might be useful. There we are. Now that might help you plan ahead because it's got the dates for each of the 3 semesters. Should I say trimesters? We run on a 17-week cycle, as you can probably deduce from the slide. 10 of those weeks are the delivery weeks for the module. Week 11 will be the week that you hand in your assignment. And then the subsequent 6 weeks are devoted to marking feedback to yourselves and various assessment boards and procedures. Those are the dates for this year, and they'll be pretty much the same next year and the year after, or be the back a day for each year, I suppose. Judging by your responses, most of you are actually joining us on the 30th of January, so we look forward to seeing you. But if you haven't already enrolled, then please contact us, and there's still time to do. Yes, please do ask now, and hopefully we can answer it between us. One last question from Ruth. The leadership and management, you need to take 2 core, yes, 20 credits each, 3 optional, 20 each, 2 leadership and management, and the dissertation. Oh no, I think you've got 1 option too many there. It'll be 2 core, 2 leadership and management options, 2 other options, and the dissertation. Did that make sense, Ruth? Great. And I'm still waiting for Louise to pose her question on entry requirements. Stephanie asks about clearing time out in her schedule for live seminars. It's a difficult one to answer at the moment, Stephanie, because you need to broach that one with your module tutor, whoever that tutor happens to be. Now, if you're taking Master the Academic Practice this coming semester, I don't deliver that one, so I can't answer the question. Probably if you can get into Blackboard the week before, or pass a message via one of the contacts that I'm going to give you in a moment, then they can answer the question for you.
Also, I'd like to add with the live seminars, all seminars with your tutors or your academic lead are all recorded because we have students from all around the world, so they need to fit in with everybody's schedule. So everything is always recorded and then posted onto the Blackboard or sent out to the students. So you won't ever miss the seminars. It will fit in around you and your work commitments, so you don't miss out on any of the content.
That's great. Thanks, Natalie. Louise has posed a question on entry requirements. I'm not certain I can answer this one. I don't know whether Natalie can shed any light on it. Who's the awarding body for your level 5 diploma, Louise?
Yes, I'm just looking at the entry requirements now. What we do at the University of Derby Online Learning is we take into into consideration learning experience, because we understand that not everybody has necessarily the qualifications, or especially our international students might not have same qualifications as the UK. So we do take into consideration the work experience that you do have, because that contributes towards your knowledge, towards what you can input into the course. So what if you haven't already submitted your application yet, what you can do um, is talk to our admissions advisors, and they will be able to see if your experience, I mean, it looks like you have a lot of relevant, great work experience. So I don't see it being a problem, but our admissions advisors will be able to answer that clearly for you. I can put you in touch with them if you'd like. And again, even more work experience, your listing, and a lot of qualifications, so that shouldn't be a problem. Just call our admissions team, and they'll be able to um, talk you through if that's relevant or not, which I see that being very relevant. So I hope that answers your question for now.
Right, thanks, Natalie. One thing I would add to that, Louise, is that please do that at the earliest available opportunity, because APEL, I'm not involved myself, but accreditation for prior learning and experience procedures do take a little time to be effected. So the sooner you get in there, the better. Question from Emma. You enroll for the PGC cert, and you're doing quality leadership and management. That's an interesting question, because I had considered this myself during the week. I had assumed that anyone starting this semester would automatically go in and take the core module first, and then catch up with the other modules afterwards. It seems that you're doing the math. But if you do the QLM in the slide 8 for you again, you do the QLM this semester, and then the developing leadership capacity in the following semester, then you should be able to come back to masterly academic practice in spring of 2018. Does that make sense?
What you may be able to do as well is speak to your admissions advisor, who will be able to clarify. They have a class schedule of when modules are running, so they could tell you when the next available term to enroll is. So any questions you do have, they have the correct class schedules, and will be able to help you to get the best modules for you at the right time, and make sure that you study the ones that you want as well, so you don't miss out. So always feel free to give them a call as well. Back to Dave.
Yes, unfortunately, we're not able to run every module every semester because of the numbers of students. So it may be that you have to take a semester gap, if you like, as seems to be your situation, Emma. Well, it's not too bad, because it makes a one-year course into a 1 year and one semester course. So, do you think that you'll go on to take the full masters afterward? Well, perhaps whilst you're taking the first module, you can make that decision, and if you do, um, you'll be able to choose another module, start the masters perhaps if you want to, and fit in another module during that gap semester. That's probably the best that I could suggest for you at the moment, anyway. There is another problem as well. It's not a problem as such, but if you're doing, for example, the leadership and management pathway, then the modules are not in any specific order as such. But I would always recommend that you try to do the quality leadership and management module first, because that contains general leadership and management theory and models, whereas the developing leadership capacity becomes a little bit more specific and does rely to some extent on the models that have already been QLM. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm not sure how it works for the ESOL, not my field at all, so I really can't. There's a slide with some contact information for you. And my details are on there too, so by all means contact me after the session if there's anything else that I can help you with.
And just to note again that we will be sending out a recording of this session, so you can go back through any of the questions that you asked, any of the slides that we talked about, as we've recorded it both visually and you'll be able to hear us speak as well as the presentation. So I hope that's been helpful for you as well.
Well, that's great. Thank you to everybody, and to Natalie as well. And we're approaching the end of the session. I will stick around for a little while longer if any more questions come through, but otherwise, thank you very much, and hopefully we can look forward to seeing you, so to speak, in on the program in due course.